The Constitution of India establishes a parliamentary system of government that is inspired by the British model. In this system, the Council of Ministers, led by the Prime Minister, holds the real power in governing the country. This means that while the President of India is the formal head of state, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are effectively responsible for running the government and making important decisions. Although the Constitution doesn't provide a detailed description of the parliamentary system, it does reference some key principles under Articles 74 and 75. Article 74 highlights the importance of the Council of Ministers in advising the President of India. It states that the Council of Ministers, headed by the Prime Minister, aids and advises the President in conducting the government's affairs. This means that while the President has the authority, the Prime Minister and the Council play a crucial role in ensuring that the government functions smoothly. On the other hand, Article 75 outlines various important aspects related to the ministers. It details how ministers are appointed, their terms in office, and their roles and responsibilities. It also discusses qualifications necessary for someone to become a minister and states the provisions for their oath of office. Additionally, Article 75 mentions the salaries and allowances that ministers are entitled to, ensuring that they receive fair compensation for their work. These articles encourage a cooperative relationship between the executive branch of government, the Council of Ministers, and the head of state, the President. It's important to recognize that the Prime Minister, as the leader of the Council of Ministers, is responsible for maintaining this balance and ensuring that the government serves the interests of the people. In summary, while the Indian Constitution does not elaborate extensively on the principles of the parliamentary system, Articles 74 and 75 provide important guidelines on how the executive branch operates. Understanding these articles helps us grasp the dynamics of governance in India, illustrating how the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers play a pivotal role in shaping the laws and policies that affect the nation. This framework is designed to promote accountability and good governance, which are essential in a democratic system like India's. Constitutional provisions on the Council of Ministers in India. Article 74. Council of Ministers and the President. Article 74 of the Indian Constitution explains the relationship between the President and the Council of Ministers. At the top of the Council is the Prime Minister, who helps and advises the President. When the President is performing their functions, they are expected to follow the advice given by the Council. However, the President has the authority to ask the Council to reconsider their advice. After this reconsideration, if the Council provides new advice, the President must act according to it. It's important to note that the advice given by the Council of Ministers to the President cannot be questioned in any court. This means that their decisions and advice are protected from judicial review, ensuring that the President can operate without interference from the judiciary. Article 75. Appointment and accountability of ministers. According to Article 75, the President appoints the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister then advises the President on whom to appoint as other ministers. The total number of ministers, including the Prime Minister, cannot exceed 15% of the total number of members of the Lok Sabha, the lower house of Parliament, a rule established by the 91st Amendment Act of 2003. If a member of either House of Parliament is found guilty of defection, which means they have switched their allegiance from their political party without following the proper procedure, they cannot be appointed as a minister. This provision was also introduced in the 91st Amendment Act of 2003. The ministers serve at the pleasure of the President, meaning that the President can dismiss them at any time. Moreover, the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, meaning they have to answer to this body of elected representatives for their actions and decisions. The President also administers the oaths of office and secrecy to the ministers. If a minister is not a member of the parliament for 6 consecutive months, they will lose their position. The salaries and allowances for ministers are decided by Parliament. Article 77, Conduct of Government Business. Article 77 outlines how the Government of India conducts its business. All executive actions taken by the government are done in the name of the President, making it clear that the President represents the state in these matters. The orders and documents executed in the President's name need to be approved and authenticated as per the rules set by the President. The Constitution also stipulates that the validity of these documents cannot be questioned just because they are not directly made by the President. The President is responsible for creating rules that ensure smooth business operations within the Government of India, including distributing tasks among the ministers. Article 78, Responsibilities of the Prime Minister. Article 78 assigns specific duties to the Prime Minister. These include communicating all decisions made by the Council of Ministers regarding the country's administration and any legislative proposals that may come up. The Prime Minister is also required to provide additional information requested by the President about the administration and legislative proposals. If the President wants, the Prime Minister must present any decision made by a minister that has not yet been reviewed by the Council of Ministers. This establishes a communication link between the President and the Council to ensure transparency and accountability. Article 88, Rights of Ministers in Parliament. Article 88 gives ministers the right to participate in discussions and proceedings of both houses of Parliament as well as any joint sittings or committees they are part of. However, ministers do not have the right to vote in these proceedings. This provision allows ministers to engage in parliamentary debates and contribute to policymaking, but their voting power is restricted to prevent any potential conflicts of interest and ensure checks and balances within the legislative process. Conclusion. The articles of the Indian Constitution regarding the Council of Ministers lay down the framework for governance in India. They establish how the President, Prime Minister, and other ministers interact, their roles, and their responsibilities. This structure is crucial for maintaining a functional democracy where elected officials are held accountable. Understanding these provisions helps clarify how executive power is exercised and how it aligns with the overall principles of the Constitution. Nature of advice by ministers. In India, Article 74 of the Constitution talks about the role of the Council of Ministers, which is led by the Prime Minister. This council is responsible for helping and advising the President in carrying out their duties and functions. The 42nd and 44th Amendments to the Constitution made it clear that the advice given by the Council of Ministers is mandatory and must be followed by the President. This means the President does not have the freedom to ignore this advice when making decisions. An important aspect of this arrangement is that the advice ministers give to the President cannot be examined or questioned by any court. This provision highlights the close and confidential relationship between the President and the ministers. It is designed to ensure that there is a smooth functioning of the government, where the President relies on the Council for guidance. A landmark case that sheds light on this topic is the UNR Rao case from 1971. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled that even if the Lok Sabha, the lower house of Parliament, is dissolved, the Council of Ministers continues to hold its position. This is significant because it emphasizes that Article 74 is a mandatory requirement. Thus, the President cannot use executive powers on their own without the guidance of the Council of Ministers. If the President tries to exercise these powers without this advice, it would be considered unconstitutional as it goes against the provisions of Article 74. Similarly, the Shamsher Singh case from 1974 further clarifies this point. the Supreme Court stated that whenever the Constitution indicates that the President's satisfaction is needed for a particular decision, it does not mean the President's personal views are decisive. Instead, it signifies the collective satisfaction of the Council of Ministers. In other words, the President acts on the advice of the Council when performing their functions and using their powers. These rulings establish a clear framework for the relationship between the President and the Council of Ministers, reinforcing the principle of collective responsibility in governance. The ministers, through their advice, ensure that the actions taken by the President align with the policies of the government, thereby maintaining a unified approach to governance as outlined in the Indian Constitution. In summary, the relationship between the President and the Council of Ministers, as laid out in Article 74 and supported by various court cases, is crucial for the functioning of the Indian government. This structure not only ensures accountability but also reinforces the unique parliamentary system of democracy that India follows. Appointment of ministers in India. In India, the process for appointing ministers is quite specific and is defined by the Constitution. The President of India has the formal power to appoint the Prime Minister. However, it's essential to understand that the President can only appoint the Prime Minister who has the confidence of the majority in the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house of Parliament. Once the Prime Minister is appointed, they advise the President on whom to select as the other ministers. This means that the President cannot choose ministers without the Prime Minister's recommendations. Typically, ministers are chosen from among the elected members of Parliament, either from the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house. Interestingly, the Constitution also allows for the appointment of a person who is not a member of either house of Parliament as a minister. However, this individual must become a member of either house within 6 months of their appointment. They can achieve this either through an election or by nomination. If they fail to do so within this time frame, they will automatically lose their position as a minister. It is also worth noting that a minister who belongs to one house of Parliament has certain privileges. For instance, they can participate in discussions and debates in both houses. However, their voting rights are limited to the house of which they are a member. This provision ensures that ministers can engage fully in parliamentary proceedings, promoting active participation in the legislative process. The relevant articles in the Indian Constitution related to the appointment of ministers are found in Article 75, which defines the process of appointing the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, and Article 164, which details similar processes for state governments. Understanding these articles helps in grasping the legal framework governing the appointment of ministers in India. Overall, this system ensures that the executive branch of the government is formed with legislative input, maintaining a balance between the different branches of government and enhancing the principle of accountability in governance. Oath and salary of ministers in India. Before a person can become a minister in India, they must take an oath of office, which is administered by the President of India. This oath is very important because it outlines the commitments the minister makes when assuming the role. In their oath of office, the minister promises to be loyal to the Constitution of India and to protect the country's sovereignty and integrity. They also commit to perform their duties honestly, treating all people justly according to the Constitution and laws, without any favoritism or bias. In addition to the oath of office, ministers also take an oath of secrecy. In this oath, a minister promises not to share any sensitive information or matters they are made aware of while serving as a union minister, unless it is necessary for carrying out their official duties. This is critical to maintain confidentiality in governmental affairs. An interesting historical event occurred in 1990 when the oath taken by Devi Lal, who was serving as a deputy prime minister, was challenged in court. Some argued that there was no provision for a deputy prime minister in the constitution, questioning the constitutionality of the oath. However, the Supreme Court of India ruled in favor of Devi Lal, stating that referring to someone as Deputy Prime Minister is merely descriptive. This description does not provide any extra powers beyond those assigned to ministers by the Constitution, as long as the primary content of the oath is appropriate. Regarding salaries and allowances, the salaries of ministers in India are determined by the Parliament and are subject to change. A minister receives a salary similar to that of a member of Parliament. In addition to salary, they receive several benefits, including a sumptuary allowance based on their rank, free accommodation, travel allowances, and medical benefits. In 2001, there were notable increases in these allowances. The sumptuary allowance for the Prime Minister was raised from 1,500 rupee to 3,000 rupee per month. Similarly, the allowance for a cabinet minister was increased from 21,000 rupee to 22,000 rupee per month. The allowance for a minister of state went up from 500 rupee to 21,000 rupee per month, and the allowance for deputy ministers rose from 300 rupee to 600 rupee per month. The Indian Constitution provides for these frameworks and guidelines in various articles. Article 75 discusses the appointment of ministers, and Article 164 outlines the Council of Ministers and their responsibilities. The Constitution also contains provisions under which the Parliament has the authority to determine the salaries and allowances of its members, including ministers, ensuring transparency and regulation in salaries. Understanding these aspects is crucial for grasping how the Indian political system operates, highlighting the responsibilities and compensations associated with the ministerial role in governance. Responsibility of ministers in India. In India, the functioning of the government is based on a key principle known as collective responsibility. This principle is essential to the parliamentary system, which is a type of government where the elected representatives, or ministers, are accountable to the parliament, particularly to the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house. According to Article 75 of the Indian Constitution, the entire Council of Ministers is accountable to the Lok Sabha. This means that all ministers share the responsibility for their actions and decisions as a group. They are expected to work closely together. If the Council of Ministers faces a no-confidence motion, a formal statement that they no longer have the confidence of the Lok Sabha, they must all resign. This includes ministers who are members of the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house of Parliament. If a situation arises where the Council of Ministers feels that the Lok Sabha does not represent the people's views, they can recommend to the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha and call for new elections. However, the President is not obliged to agree with this advice if the Council of Ministers has lost the Lok Sabha's trust. The idea of collective responsibility also means that any decisions made by the Cabinet are binding for all Cabinet ministers. Even if a minister disagrees with a decision made during a Cabinet meeting, they are expected to support and defend that decision publicly and within the Parliament. If a minister cannot stand by that decision, they must resign. This practice ensures that there is a unified front from the government. Throughout Indian history, there have been instances where ministers resigned due to disagreements with cabinet decisions. Notable examples include Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who resigned in 1953 due to his differences surrounding the Hindu Code Bill, which aimed to reform Hindu personal law. Similarly, C.D. Deshmukh stepped down because of his opposition to the policy of reorganizing states, and Arif Mohammad resigned in protest against the Muslim Women, Protection of Rights on Divorce, Act of 1986. It's important to understand that this system of collective responsibility not only ensures accountability but also promotes teamwork among ministers. It encourages them to discuss their differences privately and present a united stance to the public and the Parliament. This practice is vital for the health of democracy in India, providing a check on arbitrary decisions and ensuring that the government remains aligned with the will of the people. Article 75 of the Indian Constitution emphasizes the concept of individual responsibility concerning the Council of Ministers. This article indicates that ministers serve at the pleasure of the President of India, which means the President has the authority to remove any minister from their position. Interestingly, this can happen even when the minister has the support of the Lok Sabha, the lower house of Parliament. However, the President can only exercise this power based on the advice of the Prime Minister. This unique arrangement highlights the role of the Prime Minister in maintaining the effectiveness and accountability of the Council of Ministers. If there are disagreements or if the Prime Minister is not satisfied with the minister's performance, he or she has the power to either ask the minister to resign or recommend to the President that the minister be dismissed. This mechanism ensures that the concept of collective responsibility, which means the entire Council of Ministers is collectively accountable to the Lok Sabha, is upheld. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was a key architect of the Indian Constitution, noted the importance of the Prime Minister's role in achieving collective responsibility. He argued that the office of the Prime Minister needs to have clear authority to appoint and dismiss ministers. Without such powers, it would be challenging to achieve a fully functional system of collective responsibility among ministers. In addition to Article 75, several other articles also reflect the accountability of ministers and uphold the democratic fabric of the nation. For instance, Article 74 outlines the need for the Council of Ministers to aid and advise the President, which further emphasizes the balance between individual responsibility and collective accountability. The significance of these articles lies in their contribution to a parliamentary system where the government is responsible both to the President and the Lok Sabha, thereby ensuring that ministers remain accountable for their actions and decisions while in office. This framework allows for an efficient functioning of democracy, where ministers are free to operate but are also expected to be answerable for their performance to the Prime Minister, the President, and ultimately to the people through their representatives in the Lok Sabha. This intricate balance of power is fundamental in maintaining the integrity and effectiveness of governance in India. In Britain, when the king makes an order for a public action, that order has to be approved by a government minister. This process is known as countersigning. If the king's order breaks any law, the minister who countersigned it can be held accountable and could even face a court case. There is a phrase often used in Britain, "The king can do no wrong." This means that the king cannot be taken to court for his actions, highlighting the idea that the monarchy is above the law. In contrast, India's legal system and constitutional framework work differently when it comes to the accountability of ministers. The Indian Constitution does not include a specific rule stating that the President's orders must be countersigned by a minister. This means that when the President issues an order for public actions, there is no need for a minister's approval. Moreover, the courts in India are not allowed to investigate the advice or recommendations given by ministers to the President. This point is significant because it establishes what is known as the doctrine of separation of powers, whereby each branch of government, executive, legislative, and judiciary, has its own distinct responsibilities and powers. The relationship between the President and the ministers in India falls under this doctrine, ensuring that the judiciary cannot interfere with the executive's internal decision-making processes. The relevant constitutional articles that govern this situation in India include Article 74 and Article 75. Article 74 states that the Council of Ministers shall aid and advise the President in the exercise of their functions, but the President is not bound to act according to this advice. Article 75 discusses the appointment of the Prime Minister and other ministers and asserts that they hold office during the pleasure of the President. This indicates that while ministers may advise the President, they do not necessarily share direct legal responsibility for presidential actions. As a result, while ministers in India may play a crucial role in advising the president, the system does not hold them legally accountable in the same way as the British system does. This difference in legal frameworks reflects the distinct historical, political, and cultural contexts of the two countries, shaping how governance and accountability are framed in their respective constitutional setups. Composition of the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers is an important part of the Indian government and is made up of three main types of ministers: cabinet ministers, ministers of state, and deputy ministers. Each of these groups has different ranks, salaries, and levels of political significance. At the top of this hierarchy is the Prime Minister, who is the highest authority in the government. Sometimes, there may also be a Deputy Prime Minister, who is usually appointed for political reasons. Cabinet ministers have significant roles as they lead key ministries in the central government. These ministries include essential areas such as home affairs, defense, finance, and external affairs. Cabinet ministers are members of the cabinet and are active participants in its meetings, where they help decide government policies. Their responsibilities cover a broad range of issues within the central government, ensuring the smooth operation of the country. Ministers of state can either run specific ministries or serve alongside cabinet ministers. When they work with cabinet ministers, they may take charge of certain departments or handle specific tasks related to those ministries. Regardless of their role, they work under the guidance of cabinet ministers and share in their responsibilities. If a minister of state has an independent charge of a ministry, they can make decisions and perform their duties similarly to cabinet ministers. However, they are not part of the cabinet and typically do not attend cabinet meetings unless they have been invited to discuss matters concerning their ministry. The next group, deputy ministers, do not control ministries or departments on their own. Instead, they assist cabinet ministers or ministers of state in handling various administrative, political, and parliamentary responsibilities. Like ministers of state, deputy ministers are not members of the cabinet and do not participate in cabinet meetings. Another category related to this structure is parliamentary secretaries. However, it is important to note that they are not considered part of the Council of Ministers. Parliamentary secretaries are appointed by the Prime Minister rather than the President and do not oversee any departments. Their role primarily involves helping senior ministers with their duties in Parliament. In terms of the Indian Constitution, the Council of Ministers is established under Article 74, which states that the Council advises the President of India in exercising his functions. Article 75 further outlines the process of appointment of the Prime Minister and other ministers, clarifying that the Council shall not exceed 15% of the total number of members in the Lok Sabha, House of the People. In summary, the Council of Ministers plays a crucial role in the functioning of the Indian government, with distinct roles and responsibilities for each category of ministers. Understanding the composition and functioning of this council is essential for grasping how the executive branch of the Indian government operates. Understanding the Council of Ministers and the Cabinet in India. The terms Council of Ministers and Cabinet are frequently used as if they mean the same thing, but there are important differences between them. These differences relate to their size, functions, and roles within the Indian government framework. The Council of Ministers is a broader group that includes all types of ministers. This includes cabinet ministers, ministers of state, and deputy ministers. On the other hand, the cabinet is a smaller body that consists only of cabinet ministers. So, while all members of the cabinet are part of the Council of Ministers, not all members of the Council of Ministers are in the cabinet. When it comes to meetings, the Council of Ministers does not meet regularly to conduct government business. It does not have collective functions in the way the cabinet does. The cabinet, in contrast, meets often, typically once a week, to discuss and make decisions about government operations. This ability to meet frequently gives the cabinet collective functions, allowing it to act as a cohesive unit. In terms of power, the Council of Ministers has all the theoretical powers. However, the cabinet actually exercises these powers in practice. The decisions taken by the cabinet are binding on all members of the Council of Ministers. This means the cabinet plays a crucial role in directing the Council of Ministers and making policy decisions that all ministers must follow. The relationship between the two is highlighted in their functions. The cabinet not only makes decisions but also supervises how these decisions are executed by the Council of Ministers. Hence, the cabinet takes on a leadership role within the larger Council of Ministers. From a constitutional perspective, the Council of Ministers is outlined in Articles 74 and 75 of the Indian Constitution. These articles deal with the formation and powers of the Council of Ministers, but they do not specify how big it should be. The size of the cabinet is determined by the Prime Minister, and it can change based on the current needs and situations. Originally, the concept of the cabinet was not explicitly included in the Constitution. It was later defined in Article 352 following the 44th Amendment in 1978. To add a further legal framework, the 91st Amendment Act of 2003 was established, stating that the total number of ministers, including the Prime Minister, should not exceed 15% of the total membership of the Lok Sabha, the lower house of Parliament. In other terms, the Salaries and Allowances of Ministers Act of 1952 defines a minister broadly, including anyone serving in the Council of Ministers, regardless of their specific title. Both the Council of Ministers and the Cabinet are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. This means that they must maintain the confidence of the majority in this house to govern effectively. Ultimately, while these two groups work closely together, their functions and structures are distinct, providing a comprehensive legislative framework that supports the functioning of the Indian government. The role of the Cabinet in India. The Cabinet plays a crucial role in the Indian government. It is considered the highest decision-making body within the political and administrative framework of the country. This means that the Cabinet is responsible for making important decisions that affect the entire nation. One of its main functions is to formulate policies for the central government. This involves creating plans and guidelines that shape how the government operates and addresses various issues. For example, if the government needs to respond to a health crisis, such as during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Cabinet will develop strategies to manage the situation effectively. Additionally, the Cabinet holds the position of supreme executive authority in the central government. This means that it has the ultimate power to implement laws and policies. As part of its responsibilities, the Cabinet coordinates the administration at the central level, ensuring that different departments and ministries work together efficiently. The Cabinet also serves as an advisory group to the President of India. According to Article 74 of the Indian Constitution, the President must act according to the advice given by the Cabinet. This advice is binding, which means that the President is required to follow it unless the Cabinet's recommendations are unconstitutional. Furthermore, the Cabinet plays a vital role in managing crises. This includes dealing with emergencies like natural disasters or security threats that require quick and decisive action. The Cabinet discusses these situations and decides on the best course of action to protect the nation and its citizens. Regarding legislative and financial matters, the Cabinet is responsible for presenting major bills and budget proposals to the Parliament. It discusses and approves these important issues before they are taken to the Legislative Assembly. This is essential for maintaining order and ensuring that necessary laws are enacted efficiently. The Cabinet also oversees higher appointments in the government, including constitutional authorities like the Chief Justice of India and other senior officials. This power allows it to influence who holds important positions within the government, which can significantly impact governance. International relations are another critical area overseen by the cabinet. It handles foreign policies and relations with other countries, ensuring that India's interests are represented on the global stage. This includes negotiations, treaties, and diplomatic discussions that shape India's standing in the world. In summary, the cabinet is at the center of decision-making in India's political system. It not only formulates policies and manages crises but also advises the president, oversees legislative matters, makes key appointments, and directs foreign relations. This multifaceted role is essential for the smooth functioning of the Indian government and reflects the importance of the cabinet in upholding democratic governance and administrative efficiency. The role of the cabinet in India. The cabinet plays a vital role in the functioning of both the British and Indian governments. Many political scientists and constitutional experts have compared the cabinet to essential components of a well-functioning system. For example, Ramsay Muir described the cabinet as the steering wheel of the ship of the state, which indicates that it guides the direction of government policy and action. Similarly, Lowell compared it to the keystone of the political arch, emphasizing its key role in supporting the structure of the government. Sir John Marriott suggested that the cabinet is the pivot around which political activity revolves. This metaphor suggests that the decisions and actions of the cabinet greatly influence all aspects of governance. Gladstone took this imagery further by saying the cabinet is the solar orb, implying that it is at the center of the political universe, with other political bodies revolving around it. Barker referred to the cabinet as the magnet of policy, suggesting that it draws various political strategies and initiatives towards a cohesive direction. Walter Bagehot expressed the idea that the cabinet serves as a hyphen that connects the executive branch, which carries out laws, with the legislative branch, which creates laws. This indicates that the cabinet has the vital role of ensuring that these two aspects of government work together smoothly. Sir Ivor Jennings pointed out that the cabinet is at the core of the British constitutional system, providing a sense of unity in the government. L.S. Amery also described the cabinet as the central directing instrument of government, demonstrating its importance in steering national policy. In Britain, the cabinet has become so powerful that Muir once called it the dictatorship of the cabinet. In his book, How Britain is Governed, he argues that the cabinet holds such extensive power that it may be seen as omnipotent in a theoretical sense, although there are limitations on how this power can be exercised. He explained that whenever the cabinet commands a majority in the legislature, it operates in a way that resembles a dictatorship, albeit one that is subject to public scrutiny. Muir also noted that this form of governance is much stronger today than it was in the past. In the Indian context, these observations are equally relevant. The Indian cabinet, like its British counterpart, is integral to the national governance structure. According to Article 75 of the Indian Constitution, the Prime Minister is appointed by the President and must have the support of the majority in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of Parliament, just like in the British system where the Prime Minister is drawn from the majority party in the House of Commons. The Indian Cabinet is responsible for making the most important decisions concerning domestic and foreign policies and is collectively accountable to the Lok Sabha. Additionally, Article 85 provides Parliament with the power to dissolve the Lok Sabha, which further emphasizes the Cabinet's responsibility to maintain the confidence of the elected representatives. Overall, the Cabinet serves as the backbone of governance in India, paralleling many of the roles it plays in Britain. It coordinates policymaking, ensures the execution of laws, and maintains the relationship between the executive and legislative branches. The ideas presented by political scientists about the cabinet's role hold true, highlighting its importance in maintaining order and direction in the government. The kitchen cabinet in India's political system. In India, the government operates through a formal structure known as the cabinet, which is the highest decision-making body. The cabinet is headed by the Prime Minister and also includes various cabinet ministers. However, there exists an even smaller group within this cabinet called the inner cabinet or kitchen cabinet. This informal group has come to represent a more powerful entity within the government. The kitchen cabinet consists of the Prime Minister and a select few colleagues whom the Prime Minister trusts. These individuals often include influential figures who help the Prime Minister discuss pressing issues and navigate critical decisions. Interestingly, members of the kitchen cabinet can also include outsiders, such as friends and family of the Prime Minister, who provide additional insights and advice. Historically, every Prime Minister in India has had an inner cabinet, which can be seen as a circle within a circle. One of the most notable examples was during the tenure of Indira Gandhi, when the kitchen cabinet was particularly influential. In her time, the group wielded considerable power and was seen as central to her decision-making process. There are several advantages to having an inner cabinet. First, because it is a smaller group, it tends to be more efficient in making decisions compared to a larger cabinet. This compact size allows for more frequent meetings and swift discussions on various matters. Additionally, it provides the Prime Minister with a level of secrecy when handling sensitive political issues, which can be crucial for effective governance. On the flip side, the inner cabinet also has its disadvantages. It can diminish the authority and status of the formal cabinet, leading to a perception that the cabinet is no longer the primary decision-making body. Furthermore, this structure can sidestep legal processes, as individuals who are not official cabinet members can play significant roles in government decisions. This phenomenon, where decisions are essentially cooked and presented to the cabinet for approval, has led to concerns about transparency and accountability within the government. The concept of a kitchen cabinet is not unique to India. It can also be observed in other democracies such as the United States and the United Kingdom. In these countries, similar informal groups exist and have been known to influence government decisions significantly. The Indian Constitution does not explicitly mention the kitchen cabinet, nor is there a law governing its formation or functioning. However, it exists as a practical part of political life, and its influence is acknowledged by articles governing the powers of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, such as Article 75, which deals with the appointment of ministers, and Article 78, which outlines the duties of the Prime Minister. In conclusion, the kitchen cabinet represents a complex aspect of India's political machinery, blending efficiency with significant implications for governance and responsibility. Understanding its role is essential for grasping how political decisions are made in India, revealing both the strengths and weaknesses of such informal arrangements in a formal political system.